What's up, guys? EJ Stewart here, joined also by Kendall Stewart. Today, we're going to be giving you guys our sleepers for this 2022 NBA draft. This draft happening this week, so this will be among our last videos we'll be getting out. Kendall, we always love talking about the under the radar players that perhaps people aren't talking about in the first round or high in the draft, and some guys that maybe you haven't even been heard about in terms of getting drafted. So, very good collection of names we have here. I'm very curious to hear what the fans got to say about some of these under the radar players we're going to be discussing.
Yeah, it's always a fun exercise that we do. We always remember the makes more than the misses in scouting.
For sure.
So I think about
Which is very anti-internet because the internet will remember your misses way more.
yeah, 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 I think back to a couple years ago, I want to say it was maybe 2018. You had Gary Trent, I had
Yeah.
Anthony Simons,
Wow.
Robert Williams, I believe. All three of those guys have had good careers so far. Just last season, I mean, you had Chris Duarte, Austin Reeves as a guy that I gave a shout out to. And look, you have some guys where there's plenty of guys we mentioned that, haven't done much in the league. We're not gonna legislate that, but
Yeah, yeah. We'll
it,
let that one go
yeah,
by the
but
wayside.
that's the fun part about sleepers is that you're trying to identify guys who more than likely, based off where they're going to be selected, maybe aren't expected to carve out, you know, the role that you anticipate for them and that you think they're going to exceed their expectations. And a sleeper can
Right.
be a guy who is going to get drafted in the late 20s that you think is a lottery talent, a guy who is going to get drafted in the second round that you think is a first round guy. Or a guy that may go undrafted that you think may be a guy that you would have maybe in your first round or in the early second round. So, I mean, there's guys that I have on my list that I think may not get drafted that I would draft in the first round. So, uh, this should be exciting. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, so let's get to it, man. Let's get the people what they want here. So I'll go first, giving us our sleepers. And I'm gonna start with a young man out of Nebraska, Bryce McGowans. This kid, 6'6", 6'7", three-level scorer. I love the way he can attack the all three levels. Um, you'll look at some of the efficiency numbers, and they may scare you a little bit. You know, he only shot 40% from three. Excuse me, 40% from the field, about 27% from three. But you got to remember, he was playing on a miserable Nebraska team. You know, Nebraska normally is pretty sorry in basketball, and maybe someone would ask, why would you go there if you knew this was going to be a rough year? But he did take the challenge of trying to carry them. They did have some pretty big wins. We talk about a guy like Malachi Brannon a lot on this channel, and a lot of YouTube draft people have been talking about him. He went up to they went up to Columbus, and they thumped Ohio State, and he put 26 on them. You know, he had a couple other really big games against some really good teams. And I think he's one of those guys you look at with major upside. This guy is only 19 years old. He turns 20 later this year, and he's a guy that you want to develop. You see the foundation though of his ability to score in a one-on-one game. He does have pretty nice range, and if he can continue to work on the consistency of his jump shot, I think you have the foundation for a very good player. I think one of the things he's gonna have to work on is he's a little turnover prone. He's not necessarily the greatest passer. He only has 1.4 assists. The guy is a just straight up scorer. That's what you're looking for a guy like this. But I'm hearing him going, late, second round, maybe late first round. I mean, he's the kind of player that, given his age and given the talent that he has, I would give him a late first round grade for me. So I've been surprised to see him ranked so low in some of these mock drafts, some of these big boards. I like Bryce McGowan's game. I'm not gonna overreact to some of the efficiency numbers and some of the warts we saw him playing on a difficult team. The talent's there. He has a chance to be a solid NBA player. So he's my first sleeper for this draft.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of Bryce McGowans. I mean, again, you're talking about a guy high upside,
Yeah,
a lot of tools and traits. Yes, the numbers aren't all there. Yes, he didn't really contribute to much winning basketball at Nebraska. But we're talking about a guy that was a five-star recruit coming out of high school that I think for the most part lived up to that billing at
definitely.
Nebraska from a production standpoint. Just, like you said, not a whole lot of help. Um, but yeah, the talent is all there. Probably needs a couple of years to develop, but that, long term, sort of in the Will Barton, I think, mold. And Will Barton was a guy similar kind of profile.
Yeah.
coming out of Memphis in terms of also 5-star, bad team. Took a couple years and eventually carved out an NBA role. Um, for me, my first guy is going to be Andrew Nembhard, Gonzaga Bulldog. It's very rare that
Shout
you'll
out to
find
the Zags. Hail
on
to the
this channel
Zags.
a uh, a Gonzaga Bulldog reference that's not coming from EJ's mouth. Um, but yeah, it's coming from me. I am the Gonzaga guy in this circumstance, and maybe it makes sense because as a Memphis fan, I did have to suffer through their second round of 32 matchup between Gonzaga and Andrew Nembhard was quite the catalyst for Gonzaga's win in that
Yep.
game and all season. The guy, you're talking the consummate floor general in this draft. I mean, may have the title of best passer in this draft. Uh, Certainly, I think has the best command of an offense and of running a team of any player in this draft. And that's not saying a whole lot because this draft is light on high level point guard play. But when I think about sleepers and I think about a guy who's probably going to go lower than he should, most mock drafts have him somewhere in the second round, whether it be
Right.
early in the second round, late in the second round. I think Andrew Nembhard should be a first round pick, probably late first round. When you ask me why, I would say I think I think about the success that veteran older point guards have had early on in their careers in the recent years. We've seen either at the top of the draft guys like Tyrese Halliburton,
Yeah.
have success, John Moran obviously, or even later in the draft we've seen guys like Emmanuel Quickly and Peyton Pritchard and um, guys that are a little more seasoned. Monty Morris,
Yeah.
guys in that mold have had success in the NBA. Um, Being that more veteran point guard. And you look at, what's their upside, Bowen Tyler, another guy a couple years in college. I don't know what Andrew Nembhard's upside is, but when I think about a team drafting late in the first round that needs depth at the point guard position, needs
Yeah.
help, Andrew Nembhard can come in right away. I mean, this guy, was played with Trey Mann as a freshman at Florida, Trey Mann's freshman season in Florida. He was the point guard. He was the guy. I mean, Trey Mann's in the league now and was worth the first round pick. And of course, Trey Mann's gotten much better than he was his freshman season. But when I think about Andrew Nembhard, has also gotten much better since his time in Florida. I feel like it's worth the investment. Also a guy that grew up playing with R.J. Barrett in Canada. R.J. Barrett at this point been in the league for a little bit, but if that's his peer group, like to me, he looks like an NBA player. He looks like an NBA point guard.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched plenty of Andrew Nembhard the last 2 years. He is a very, very solid floor general, arguably the best passer in this draft. He just pinpoint some of the passes on the break, the way he can run pick and roll, the way he can hit the post. He's everything you want out of a point guard, with the exception of great athleticism and some crazy shot.
Isolation scoring, yeah.
Yeah, and isolation scoring. I think that, but to me, I think the key with him is if he can make teams pay for going under screens and pick and roll, he can consistently be a 3-point shooter, something that was a little hit or miss in his years at Gonzaga. Then I agree. I think Andrew Nembhard
And look,
absolutely is an NBA point
99%
guard.
of his offense or his production is going to come through pick and roll and just in transition, which is fine. Because in today's day and age, I mean, that's D'Angelo
That's a
Russell.
lot of
Like
the game anyway. Yeah,
D'Angelo Russell has a little bit of an isolation bag at this point, much better than Andrew Nembhard, but
sure.
most of his production is going to come through the pick and roll and in transition, and that's fine. I'm not asking him to be Ja Morant. We're just talking about a guy going in the second unit and giving you production. So I think Nembhard can do that potentially at a high level.
Next guy I want to target for me as a sleeper, Alondes Williams, point guard out of Wake Forest, combo guard out of Wake Forest. Kendall knows I've been talking up Alondes Williams for months now. I've talked about him on other YouTube channels. Alondes Williams has been by far one of my favorite players in this draft process. And I've been a bit surprised that there hasn't been more enthusiasm for Alondes being a first round pick, particularly considering how weak this guard class is. I understand he's a much older prospect, much more to the akin of someone like Chris Duarte last year being 24. I believe Alonso is going to be 23. So, older prospect. He's been around the block for a little bit. He had spent all that time in Oklahoma and was, quite frankly, a bit of an ordinary player there. But he got to Wake Forest, and it just seemed to open up his game. You want to talk about joy in watching film? Watching Alondes Williams pass the basketball was some of the most joyous times I had watching film of any prospect for the past few years. I mean, he is a electric passer. The way he can hit guys on the break, the way he can put some sauce on it with some of the no look passes, and he's just a in soccer we call a very cheeky player, but a very fun player to follow. He's really strong going to the rim, so he can finish through contact. He can finish above the rim in space. He's got a lot of tools that you like. The only thing that I think to me that I look at and I say, okay, maybe this is where I get a little concerned, is he's not the greatest jump shooter, clearly. That's not really his game right now, and he's going to have to improve the jump shot. No question about that. But when you look at his advanced statistical numbers, overall as an offensive player, he ranks in the 71st percentile. In the half court, he ranks in the 70th percentile. And pick and roll, where a lot of the game is going to be played, he ranked in the 69th percentile, which was very good. He's very good in as a pick and roll ball handler. He's showed to be a pretty good isolation scorer. And what was interesting to me was the numbers that you look at when it comes to post ups. He's in the 89th percentile, cutting 92nd percentile, and he's an excellent rebounder as a guard. He was in the 91st percentile in offensive putbacks. So he can contribute to the game without being the ball dominant guy. He could contribute in a magnitude of ways. So I like a lot of what I've seen from Alondes Williams. I think that he is definitely a sleeper in this draft at the point guard spot. Love his game.
Yeah, Alondes Williams is interesting. The real swing thing with him is going to be his jump shot, man. Not a pure shooter. If he can figure out the jump shot, today's day and age, obviously guard play. A lot of times to get on the court, you got to be able to shoot, and he was very streaky. But he's got everything else, man. Like you said, a little erratic maybe, but you're willing to hone that. Yeah. You're willing to put that in.
Yeah, a bit of a high turnover player, but you get the reward with some of these just brilliant passes. And you could rein that in as a coach. You can get him to play in the right system. And quite frankly, he's been playing with much better players too, who will be able to maybe be more ready.
I mean, the guy was ACC Player of the Year.
Absolutely.
You don't see many ACC Player of the Years being talked about as late second round picks. So
exactly.
It could be an interesting steal for somebody. For me, my second sleeper in this draft, I'm going to Davidson, North Carolina. And I'm going to Hyunjung Lee. We talked about Hyunjung Lee on this YouTube channel prior to the season as a sleeper heading into the season, and still being slept on apparently because I thought he had a pretty good junior campaign at Davidson, but enough to where he felt comfortable entering the NBA draft. But yeah, I mean, when you look at draft boards, he's not necessarily on a lot of mock drafts as even a second round pick. I think most people at this point would project he may go undrafted. And to me, if he was drafted in the first round, I wouldn't be like, this team's stupid for drafting Hyunjung Lee. I think, in my mind, he's the best shooter in this draft. You can make a case for someone like AJ Griffin, and AJ Griffin's obviously, I think, the best shooter amongst the guys at the top of the draft. But when you talk about not only Hyunjung Lee's ability to shoot, catch and shoot, but the versatility in the versatility in his shot,
in the shot profile,
and the shot profile is what is so impressive. I think for again his background. I mean, you're talking about a guy that can not only shoot off the catch, but shoot off movement, shoot off any type of screen, any type of pin down, moves constantly without the ball, which in today's NBA, with a lot of these coaches being so sophisticated, you think about the success that guys in Miami have had, like Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, and most recently Max Strus. Like, I mean, if the
Strike
Miami
home
Heat
run.
drafted Hyunjung Lee, the guy would probably be a $60 million
Yeah,
player at some
well, I
point.
was gonna say Duncan Robinson would be packing his bags probably if
Yeah,
that's the case.
100%.
Considering Max Strus is taking his starting spot.
So I mean, I think, look, he's got weaknesses, 100%. He's not
Yeah.
going to do anything off the dribble.
Nope.
He's very slow-footed, not a great defensive player, not very strong, not very athletic or explosive. All these things are, I can tell you what he's not, but what he is again the best shooter in the draft, someone who can get open, lightning quick release,
Yeah.
and just deep range, and just again ability to make tough shots as well. There's some guys where they're only comfortable shooting when they're open. Hyunjung Lee, because of his height and just the steadiness and consistency in his form, is comfortable shooting in any scenario. So yeah, I think that guy is gonna make an NBA team. And I think will be a contributor on an NBA team with his ability to shoot the basketball.
Hyunjung Lee ranked in the 95th percentile in overall offense as a college player in his last year at Davidson. 94th percentile on spot situations, 75th percentile off screens, and that was with that being the 30. That was 30% of his offense. So most of his offense is coming off screens, and he's still giving you that high level efficient production. Hyunjung Lee, very accomplished player in college. I'll be interested to see if a team takes a flyer on him when the draft comes up. And the last guy I have is a guy I did mention in our previous video, which you should check out. By the way, we just did a video doing some NBA draft comparisons. I compared this gentleman to one Jordan Poole. I gotta talk again about my guy Ryan Rollins, man, from Toledo, because maybe I don't know how you feel, Kendall. I mean, we're coming up days before the draft. It feels to me like there's a lot more uncertainty, especially with like the back half of the first round in terms of what kind of guys teams are gonna be looking for. Ryan Rollins, I would have assumed at this point in time would have been a lock as a first round pick once people got to know who he is. But even late in this ball game, I'm still seeing some things saying he may be a second round guy. I don't get it. I don't get it. If you could tell me something that makes sense as to why they're not looking at this guy as a first round pick, you could enlighten me. But Ryan Rollins is one of the best pick and roll players in this draft. He ranked in the 89th percentile in pick and roll offense, and he's a guard that's going to be handling the ball a lot. And the guy can score on all three levels. He can score in the post. He can score in isolation. I mentioned his pick and roll efficiency. Overall, not too many flaws in his game. Really tight handle, strong. Maybe not the greatest 3-point shooter, but like I think to me he has a good form, and I think you'll see him shoot much better in the NBA than he did in college. Every time I watch this guy's game, I fall more in love with his game, and maybe we'll see. Maybe a team will take the chance on him in the first round. I don't know if it's because he played at a small school that people weren't that impressed, but Ryan Rollins got a hell of a lot of game, and I think that he will make a team very happy potentially, especially if they get him somehow in the second round. That would be crazy.
Yeah, Ryan Rollins. I mean, look, we talked about him before. I'm also a fan of his game. He's got he's got a lot of game.
Yeah, yeah.
Frank, with stuff in his bag. I mean, I feel like I have a theory that he may go a lot higher than people expect.
He
Um,
may he may end up being the surprise pick in
yeah,
at like
I was gonna
14 or
probably
something like
get
that.
into it before. We'll wind up probably doing some sort of pre-draft show.
Yeah,
If we were to play a game of who's gonna be the Josh Primo of this draft, I think Ryan Rollins is a pretty good candidate
interesting.
because um, he just again the film, the tape, the truth is in the tape, as they like to say, and watch the film, and the guy's got what teams look for nowadays in guard play at like a high level. Maybe not, is he gonna do what Wesley Matthews does or something like that?
Right.
Probably not. But if you're looking for a guy who's gonna be an initiator and a
Yeah.
lead guard, he has all those traits that you look for. So yeah, I think he may go a lot higher than people expect, but I agree. You know, if he
You
ends up
are
going to
seeing
second
that though,
round,
right? You're seeing that he's not necessarily a consensus first round guy, which
yeah, no,
is
I wouldn't definitely wouldn't say a consensus, but like you said, this draft is weird right now. There's a lot of
right.
guys. I don't know if there are many guys that are consensus first round
Yeah,
guys.
that's what I'm trying to say. Like,
$20.
I feel like this is weird. Where I feel like most years by now we kind of know at least the top 25 guys, and then there are a couple of surprises. Maybe some guys slip out of there because teams don't like them. We got a bad medical, whatever. I feel
Right.
like I said beyond like 15 or 16 guys, anyone else after that, I feel like can be a second round pick, which
Yeah, yeah.
is just to me unprecedented from my years of following the draft. And Rollins to me at this point would have been a lock to me to be and not only a first round pick, but like a comfortable first
Yeah.
round pick, like a guy who can
If
go in
he's
the top
not
20.
Josh Primo, then I feel like he's probably wanted to be in the Bones Highland. But Bones Highland's the same way. We were like,
Right.
you know, this guy. I mean, this guy, he's got to be in the lottery,
Yeah, yeah. We
right?
were like tick, tick, tick. We're looking
Yeah,
at
where's he
watching the
gonna
draft
go?
last year. What's going on? Yeah.
And he fell to like it was almost to the point where like his combine didn't improve his stock. So, you know, you feel like Ryan Rollins might be the same way,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So my last guy, my last sleeper, you know, I mentioned Andrew Nembhard, I mentioned Hyunjung Lee. I think for number 3, I'm gonna go with Orlando Robinson,
Okay.
center out of Fresno State. Not a guy we've talked about much on this podcast,
And usually I'm
but
the guy who talks about the bigs, so it's good to see Kendall
yeah,
showing the
yeah,
big
no,
some
I'm
love.
not. Look, man, usually I'm like the big man is a dying breed,
I
but
know, yeah.
because of that, now they've been overlooked. You know, people are jumping on the bandwagon, and now they're going a little overboard. Because Orlando Robinson, I just feel like in 2008 would be like a no doubt first round pick. You
Right.
know, like with his tools, the size. First of all, he's a real 7-footer,
Yep.
which those guys don't grow on trees. They've never grown on trees, and they especially do not grow on trees in today's basketball landscape. He's a 7-footer that has all the physical tools that you look for. He's a 7-footer with a skill set that projects as a guy who could possibly be a real jump shooter
Yeah.
at his size. You know, potentially even a guy who has the ability to shoot off the dribble.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Something that's extremely rare
Yeah.
for his size. But and we're not saying he's the next Kevin Durant, because
Yeah, relax,
that's
people.
he's 7 foot, he can shoot off the dribble. No, he's not Kevin Durant, um, but again, with his shooting ability and his size, I just feel like today's NBA, the center position has been uh, it's been. I mean, we always like to say it's been dumbed down. You should not. You don't look for a ton of stuff. You just look for a guy who can do the requisite rim running, rim protection, rebounding, you know, just do all that stuff, and then all the other stuff is gravy. But Orlando Robinson has a lot of the gravy that
Right,
you'd want
exactly.
for a center prospect. So that's the thing, is that I'm not saying I'm drafting him ahead of Chet Holmgren. You
Well,
know, I'm not
thank
saying
God, because I think a lot of people would start unsubscribing if that's what you
yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah. I'm not even saying I would draft him ahead of Jalen Duren, but if we're talking about Orlando Robinson, and he may not necessarily get drafted, you know, and that to me, with his skill set, is very surprising. Like, I don't know, like if you told me like he had, you know, some sort of, if he had red flags medically or character concerns, then I'd be like, you know, because he's at Fresno State, so the assumption is, you know, oh, what's the deal with Orlando
said.
Robinson? Like something that got to be, you know,
Yeah,
Fresno State.
it's a friend to say, guys. It's always something, right?
Yeah, historically, like, you know, I
Yeah.
remember Robert Upshaw, and then go even back to the Jerry
Yeah.
Tarkanian era.
Yeah. But shout out to Paul George. We had nothing wrong with him. And I was a
Yeah, no,
huge Paul George guy, if you
yeah, you
remember
were
that
a
draft.
huge,
PG over Gordon Hayward, and I was right about that.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, I mean, it's, I think he's got all the tools, and I think a team that needs a 5 could wind up seeing Orlando Robinson as maybe even a starting center in this league at some point.
Yeah, he's an intriguing player. You mentioned he has the real NBA center size, you know, real 7 foot. The guy's got about 7'4" wingspan. I like the fact that, you know, you talk about the shooting, and the shooting is that's the sexy trait. You say, oh man, if I can get, everybody wants a 5-man 7-footer that can shoot threes, because it
You're right.
just really opens up your offense. But I look at his passing and his assists. Those assist numbers being really strong for a center, and those ball skills. You know, with some of these teams employing a lot of motion style offense, you need those big men to be able to make tough passes, and he has that ability potentially to do that. So No, not necessarily. Don't. The thing I think that hurts him is you don't look at really anything he does defensively and say, well,
Yes,
how is he going to impact the game on that side of the ball? And I don't really have an answer for you. I'll be honest. He's not that great at defender. He ain't that great a rebounder, and that's
but
not great.
yeah,
But
but obviously, again, look, the NBA nowadays, like you do want bigs to be able to rebound and protect the rim, but
yes, since
at
since the
seven
beginning of
foot,
time, yeah,
yes, but if he's not like he's not gonna be able to guard Joel Embiid, no, but the center position, against the guys nowadays is not gonna be too difficult, but it also you hope that he can improve now that he's gonna be in a situation where he's not at Fresno State, and he's
yeah,
not the guy offensively for his team where they asking him to create off the dribble and do all this other stuff.
right,
And
yeah,
I mean, late down the stretch, I mean, if you look at his numbers, in March, I mean, he had multiple 30-point games, high 20 offensive performances. I mean, I remember a lot of Mountain West after dark nights watching
yeah.
Fresno State and being like, this guy Orlando Robinson, like this guy is pretty good.
Yeah, this guy got some game. Yeah,
His team's losing by 12, but it's not because of him. So yeah, no, I mean, I think sometimes you find these guys who are just sort of I don't even know what you would call it, like these big fish in small pond guys that
yeah.
like are just you know yeah, like I don't know how he wound up at Fresno State is beyond me, but in another universe, he comes back and enters the portal and goes to Texas or someplace, and
Right.
then is an obvious first round pick. But now he's at Fresno, and not a lot of people watched him, so he's not a household name, and this is where we're at now. But yeah, I think Orlando Robinson's got all the skills to be a center, a real center in today's NBA.
Kendall had mentioned those big games towards the end of the season. 26 against Air Force, 28 against New Mexico. Had a down game against a very good San Diego State team on that 17. Then came back and had 34 against Wyoming, 31 against San Jose State,
Hey,
25 against San Diego State, and
you
a
said
rebound game.
34 against Wyoming.
Wyoming, that was a
Graham
tournament team.
Ike, one of the best defensive bigs in the country last season, put 34 on him.
Yeah, he made 4 threes.
Wyoming, one
as
of the
well.
best defensive teams in the country last year.
Yes, yeah, and he made he made 4 threes in that game against Wyoming.
That's why Graham Ike couldn't guard him.
Right. Oh yeah, exactly.
Big that can stretch the floor like that. I mean, again,
Highly
for the
productive
Mountain West, special
player.
talent.
Yeah, highly productive player, no question.
Yeah.
Other guys who maybe guys we didn't mention in this list who I definitely have my eye on. I'm really intrigued by and I told you this a couple of weeks ago. This kid Keon Ellis from Alabama. I want to see where he may go. The measurables in draft did not help him at all, and I get that. But he is a great athlete and a great shooter. So that will usually get you in the door to some NBA teams. So I'll be interested to see if he gets a shot. I was spitballing with Kendall yesterday. I'm starting to warm up with Caleb Houston. We know he's not the lottery talent that we thought he could be coming out of high school. But now the question is, where does he get drafted? And I would take a second round flyer on Caleb Houston. You can't teach a guy who can shoot the ball that well in that kind of in that kind of shot profile at that size. So I think that those are a couple players that not necessarily the top sleepers, but some guys to think about when you watch the draft this week. Any guys? I know I'm freestyling here, but any guys that you may have besides the 3 guys you mentioned that you want to keep your eye on?
I wouldn't say this guy is a sleeper or a guy that's going to get underdrafted, but I do like Kennedy Chandler's game. I've mentioned that before.
I tell you what, man, I was talking to our brother Henry the other day, and I'm like, man, Kennedy Chandler is so weird. I think he went from being overrated to now being underrated.
Yeah, I know you were not a big
I was out on Kenny Chandler because we were talking about him in the top 10, and I was like, no way. But now I'm seeing again after that top 15, it's like who knows, and I'm like, oh no, he definitely should be in the first round or in the top 25 or so. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I like Kennedy Chandler. I mentioned Christian Brown in our last video. I think he's a guy that should be in the mix. In that 10 to 20 range. I mean, not 10, but in that mid first round at the wing spot. Patrick Baldwin's a weird one. Like, not based on anything I saw in Milwaukee, but if you would have told me before that, I mean, we watched him, a lot, obviously coming out of high school, and he was a guy that I thought would be in the mix, at, for the maybe even the number one pick in the draft. Like you're
I
thinking,
know
oh,
it's
like he's
crazy.
in the Michael Porter Jr., Jason Tatum sort of archetype, like he's the next in line, like that, and and look, it didn't work for whatever reason, but and I don't know where I'm drafting him, but if he doesn't like, he could wind up going 45 and then end up being one of the 15 best players in the draft. So, I mean, Patrick Baldwin's a guy that I am a fan of. Um, and yeah, I would say those are mostly the guys that I would keep an eye on. I the last guy we haven't mentioned any international guys. I also am a fan of Nikola Jovic.
Oh yeah,
Uh, I think we're talking about he didn't have a definitely did not have a great international season this year, but he played excellent in the FIBA
yes he did.
U19 World Cup.
Yeah, that's a lot of the film that I was watching on him,
Yeah,
and
so
he
yeah, if you
looked
watch that,
fantastic.
then you're like, this guy, why isn't
I
he
mean,
in
he
my,
looked
why isn't he on a
fantastic.
lottery?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
Trust me.
on the forgetting that he does,
Yeah,
he had a whole professional season, but yeah, I mean, I mean, injuries and you know, look, he's 6'11", but I feel like his game actually will translate his skill set and the way he plays will actually translate better to the NBA game than it would internationally. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited for Nikola Jovic as a prospect. I am obviously rooting for Denver to draft him just for the internet reaction to to the pick, but and they did work him out, so that should be fun. But no, I mean, yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's plenty of guys. I know you're a David Roddy guy. I like
yeah,
Jaden Hardy. We both like Christian Koloko. I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot of interesting players in this draft, and like you said, it's a mix. Trevor Keels is a guy I like, so yeah, we can go on and on about some of
I
these
know.
guys. I'm sure on draft night and then post draft we'll probably be giving our takes on almost everybody that
Yeah,
gets so should
yeah,
be
yeah.
exciting.
I mean. So for now, guys. I mean, the plan for us is to we're gonna try to give you guys a pre-draft stream here on the YouTube channel on Thursday. So make sure you guys keep an eye out. We're thinking about 6:30. We'll make the announcement sometime this week, but it'll be 6:30 most likely. Pre-draft YouTube stream preview of the show. What's happening? What trades may have happened already? What's the last chatter before the selection get announced? You'll have us here for that, and we'll see what we do throughout the night. Again, we could do anything. We're all free. Kendall's free. I'm free. So who knows what we may come up with? But we will definitely be doing a pre-draft show at 6:30 on Thursday. So make sure you guys keep it locked in for that. Let us know in the comments about your sleepers. Who are some guys that maybe we mentioned that you agree with or you don't agree with? You think that these guys aren't sleepers? Or some guys that we didn't mention that you think should be on that list of sleepers for this year's draft? Make sure you give us a comment in the comment section. People already know I be in there commenting, talking to you guys, exchanging ideas and getting thoughts on what you guys think of what we said. And we love communicating with the community. Draft time is my favorite time of the year, and our Super Bowl is right around the corner. So make sure you guys engage with us in the comment section. What you guys think? Of course, if you liked, make sure you give us that thumbs up, and give us a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media, for more draft content and other content we do on the channel. But that's going to do it for now. We're heading out. For Kendall, I'm EJ. Peace.